I have a small favor to ask that takes you literally a few seconds. If you like the first 100 podcasts and the guests that we have invited so far, can you do me a small favor and give us a thumbs up on any podcast platform that you are listening on? It helps the podcast more than you think, because the higher we go on the ranking, the more interesting guests we can invite. Thank you again for your support.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Broadcasting from around the world, you're listening to The First 100, a podcast on how founders acquired their first 100 paying customers. Here's your host, Hadi Radwan.
Thank you for stopping by. Quick introduction for our listeners. Shafiq Khartabil is the co-founder of Ogram, an on-demand staffing platform that matches qualified local workers with jobs in different industries. And you've raised to date $6 million from notable investors like Dtec Ventures. Shafiq, take us back to your early founding aha moment. How did you end up in this type of industry?
Very interestingly enough, Hadi, this was actually the startup of Ogram was founded based on solving a pain point that I faced in my previous business. So I was telling you early on that I had established in 2012 a hospitality business, which basically sort of developed homegrown concepts and managed and operated third-party restaurants here in the UAE. And it's really after selling off that business or exiting that business in 2016 is where I realized the passion for solving one of the biggest problems that we ever faced, which was a staffing issue. I mean, we could not source quality and reliable staff on demand to meet our seasonalities. And therefore we would, most often give up revenue opportunities and also lose out on profit. So I digged into the sort of this problem, discussed it with my network within the hospitality sector and realized how big this problem was. It's actually $1 billion problem in the hospitality space in the UAE alone. And that for me just encouraged me to do some more deep diving. And my passion grew even stronger while sort of researching on this issue. And I came to the realization that it's actually a global problem. It's a $650 billion problem globally, and 41% comes from the EMEA region. So that's where I said, you know what, UAE is the perfect climate for me to actually embark on solving this issue. And that's where it all started.
Amazing. I mean, you're solving one of the most difficult problems, which is a marketplace matchmaking, where you have supply and demand. How did you start thinking about this approach? Where do you start? Do you start with the staff workers? Do you start with the clients? Because if there's not enough staff workers, then the clients will not come, and vice versa.
Yeah, agreed. And it's often sort of the, let's say, dilemma with starting any marketplace, right? It's which side do you actually start off with? For us, I mean, I looked at, obviously, I had the need from a demand side, right? Because I owned restaurants and I would constantly face this issue. So I started off on the demand side, really sort of understanding whether the need that I had resonated with other people. And I really started to qualify those leads, let's say. So I would speak to people within the hospitality sector and really started to qualify, like exactly what are they looking for? What type of shifts are they looking to fulfill? What are they struggling with? Is it quality? Is it reliability? Is it speed? Well, what are the sort of pain points there? And after addressing those needs, I went out to the market. I went out to the supply market, and that's where I started to acquire or engage the supply and really start to attract them to these sort of jobs or these shifts. And yeah, so it was a combination really of both, right?
Amazing. Take us back to your first 100. What was the strategy that you've used early on to find those leads, other than your maybe immediate connections, as you said?
Yeah. So I was very fortunate enough because my co-founder and I had obviously the extensive network here in the UAE within the space. So, I mean, within our network, we were able to sort of qualify, let's say, I would say 50 leads, right? And really start to solve their pain points. But then I believe the most important sort of lead generation and the most cost-effective channel was referrals for us, right? We just made sure to hone in on every single deal that we had, made sure we delivered an outstanding service up until the point where, you know, the job was done. We retained the client for future orders, and we mostly said, you know, please refer us to another customer. And that's how within the first year, we were able to, just by doing that, with zero marketing in just our first year.
Amazing. And then how did you find and source the demand side, the supply side, which is in that case, the staff? How do you vet them? What's your process? How do you know how they fit which type of client?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, the process that we use right now is a lot different to what we initially did when we first started the business. But when we first started the business, it was really manual, right? So it was, you know, first of all, acquiring our workers through referral or blast messages to sort of incentivize these workers that had good experiences with us to actually go and bring their friends, because everybody wants a job. Everyone wants to sort of fulfill their schedule and optimize their income. So we found that for us to acquire supply in the very beginning, it's scale. There's so many other channels that we use, such as performance marketing, paid social, name it, the list goes on, offline and online initiatives. But once we acquire the supply to the office, run a very basic sort of soft skill test, and then a hard skill test based on the designation that they've opted for, whether it was a hospitality job or a retail job or a logistics job. We had sort of a questionnaire that we'd fill out and score these people individually, and then be able to sort of bring them onto the platform. Today, everything is automated, right? So once the workers acquired, and we acquire about 300 workers a day and activate them onto the platform. Once they are acquired to the platform, we have a very sort of sophisticated matching algorithm that follows the RFM model that Amazon use in terms of segmenting their user base, where we ensure that a certain set of champions are allocated to a certain job in addition to newcomers, just so that we, you know, ensure that the customer satisfaction is at a certain level while we introduce newcomers to the platform, and we take them through a job, and then once the job is done, they are rated, and in terms of sort of quality checks right after the job is done, we score these workers, and that sort of it gives them a gamified approach to continuous.
Got you. So on the early stages, how did you bring in the supply side? And then currently, do you have any scalable process that you follow that has served you well?
Okay, fantastic. So in terms of acquiring supply in the early days, it was very manual, and there was a lot of human touch, right? Especially when you're acquiring, workers, you want to be able to sort of meet them yourself, vet them, get to know them, and sort of build out that community. And it's very important to do so from an early stage. So we spent a lot of time in the market, visiting restaurants, coffee shops, bars, and really acquiring supply, right? Bringing them onto the platform. And what we would do is we would have open days in the office where we would physically interview those workers through questionnaires to kind of evaluate their soft skills, but also their hard skills, depending on the designation that they have selected to take working, whether it was a waiter, barista, runner, and that obviously, is scalable to a certain level, but obviously with time, especially if you want to meet the demand in the market, you're going to have to find other sort of channels to bring in supply. So today we use so many different channels, whether it's online or offline, to bring in that supply. We acquire and register about 300 workers per day. And that involves acquisition channels such as performance marketing, paid social, community management, referrals, which is probably the cheapest acquisition channel that we currently have. And we go through a very automated vetting process where workers, once they are activated on the application, they have to, in order to unlock certain designations, they have to actually unlock certain skills. And within that process, they actually need to take a short video and answer certain questions. And those videos are actually passed on to a transcriptor tool that basically identifies ideal to non-ideal answers and then scores them. So they go through a scoring system on our backend. And once they are scored, then they are sort of positioned within the marketplace, right? So that's how our sort of early vetting happens. And then while the job is taking place, the customers have the option to rate their worker. And once they do that, that obviously goes back into the sort of quality or vetting algorithm. We also match workers based on an RFM model, which is a model that Amazon used to segment their user base. And that just ultimately allows us to ensure an enough amount of champions are invited to a job as much as newcomers. So we have a fine balance between both to, continuously meet customers' expectations, but to also widen the database and ensure that everybody that has activated on the platform are actually getting jobs.
That's a very interesting process. Thank you for sharing it, Shafiq. Do you have now a story that you can share with us about your early days where you used a non-scalable strategy? And how is currently your sales team structured to get in sales from the demand side?
Yeah, so the early approach really was just hustle, go out there and do it yourself, right? So I remember when we first started the business, our budget, what we invested in the business in the first year was as much as the license costed, right? Which was about 15,000 dirhams. Everything else was done by myself and my co-founder, Kareem. And it was very important for us to actually, in order to solve this problem, we had to become industry experts, right? Because it's a very wide field. The manpower space is extremely traditional. There are a lot of big players here. So if we wanted to make a change and we actually wanted to solve, pain points and meet the demands of customers within the space, we actually had to go and speak to them, right? So we spent a lot of time, any minute that we weren't on our laptops, sort of developing a process or matching a job or whatever it may be, we were out there in the market really speaking to customers. So I would probably have about 4 to 5 meetings with various hospitality entities in a day, right? And this was also over weekends, right? So constantly meeting these people, just understanding their needs, and really, when you go through that process and you realize that somebody is actually listening and somebody is actually trying to create a solution based on their problems, that's where it becomes a lot easier for you to actually acquire that lead. I'll take you back to our first order, right? So I was sitting in downtown in one of our restaurants at the time. I was talking to the ex-CEO of Amman Hospitality, a guy called Tim, and he was telling me that they were opening the Dubai Opera at the time, that one of their biggest challenges was actually trying to find seasonal staff that fit a certain quality to meet the demand that they were forecasting within the year. And so what I did was I went back, took his requirements, and he had no idea I was actually taking his requirements while we were having the conversation. And I went back, acquired that supply, got everybody shirts because they had specific requirements where they would want anyone at an interview to come with a white shirt, black trousers, and black shoes and black socks. Got everyone white shirts. Everyone had black trousers and black shoes, and sort of gathered a bunch of people. And the next time I went to meet the CEO, I actually had the staff with me. And he said, what are these people doing here? And I said, these are your people for the Dubai Opera. And we went through a process where he actually interviewed them himself and then started to pass them on to his team. And that was our first acquisition.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. It shows the power of actually the founder doing the early sales rather than hiring a sales personnel to do it. So thank you for sharing this story. What's a principle that you live by that has served you well on your journey?
I think the principle that I go by really is just have resilience, right? Be as resilient as possible. I think, starting any business, you're going to go through a lot of challenges, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of uncertainties. And it's so important that there's always a silver lining every step of the way, right? Like something could be a huge sort of problem at the time or challenge at the time, but there's always a silver lining. There's always a way around it. There's always a workaround. And I think it's very often that I hear founders say, look, I give up. I just want a 9-to-5, or I can't do this anymore. And I think that starts to slowly build and really affect the psyche of the founder, which obviously cascades to the entire team, right? And if you're not motivated at the top, and if you're not at it every single minute of the day, then don't expect your team to do so. So I think building out resilience is probably key, a key ingredient to really just sailing through the journey of entrepreneurship, right? And not only yourself, but like creating this environment where everybody within the organization is as resilient as you are to get through any challenge that you face.
Absolutely. If you're giving an advice to entrepreneurs who are just starting their journey, every company now is a technology company in some sense, but it's also a distribution as well company, because you need to get revenue into the door. You're solving a problem out there with your solution. If you were starting from scratch, how much emphasis would you want to put on your technology and the product early on versus your distribution? Do you want to get it right from day one, or would you build a scrappy MVP just to go out and get the early customers?
Yeah, for me, I think being as fast as possible is key. You want to do it before anybody else does it. Having first mover advantage is obviously key. And I think before building a perfect product, no product is perfect. And if it's perfect, then you have a huge problem, right? And I think building a scrappy, imperfect product at the start is extremely important because it allows you to go to market fast and really sort of speak to your customers and engage them to actually build out your product for you, right? You look at the example of Facebook. Facebook was, its first instant was a very imperfect product, right? But they went to market fast, and they sort of iterated as customer needs sort of evolved, right? So I think I would not change our approach differently. We started off, and this was a decision that I made early on, was to start offline first, really understand the offline workflows and pain points before actually piecing in technology. And now when you look at our technology today, it really complements our operation and allows, utmost sort of efficiency and speed and scale, right? And if we hadn't done this approach, if we had just built a product or a perfect product, I think we would be in a very, very different situation today.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing this. One last question. What's next for Shafiq and for Ogram?
So what's next for Ogram is we've scaled into Europe last year. This year is going to be a big year for us as we are approaching the summer season in Greece. So we're definitely going to be expanding our footprint within Europe, but also within the Middle East. So we just acquired our license in KSA, and we should be operational sort of some point Q3 of this year. So Saudi is a huge opportunity for us. I think we are first movers within this industry. It's the wave is starting to pick up, and we're seeing a lot of businesses within various sectors really adopt the notion of flexible staffing. We're seeing it in our numbers here in the UAE, and we're extremely excited for what's to come with KSA. We anticipate huge adoption in that market as well. And I think it's coming at the right time.
Amazing. We wish you the best of luck on your journey, Shafiq. Thank you for stopping by. How can people reach you, and are you hiring?
Yeah, people can always reach me through LinkedIn. I'm very approachable. I respond to almost all messages, and we're definitely hiring within our growth team, our expansion team, marketing team, and tech and product as well. So anybody looking out, anyone wants to sort of join the new wave of establishing the new workforce, please get in touch and let's make it happen.
Amazing. We'll put all of this in the show notes. Thank you again and have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening to the First 100. We hope it inspired you in your journey. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or Spotify, and share it with a friend starting their entrepreneurship journey. Leave us a 5-star review. Your support will help spread our podcast to more viewers.